Welcome the people here in the room and also guys joining online. I think we have a lot of registrants online and today a rather small group in the room, but welcome for this wega breakfast today. So with that, I would just hand over to you, Sebastian. You're the host today, and you can take it from there. I mean, do you want to share the screen from your side?
No, just keep it. Yeah,
Okay.
Hello everyone. Thanks for joining and still joining. Just first of all, if you face any technical issues, always try turn it off and on again. If you have any problems, please use the chat function and we will try to help you with this. Yeah, maybe I share by myself. Give me a second.
Yeah, so, sure.
Just in case you have any questions, there is a Q&A session in the webinar or function in this webinar. So please put your questions here. We will have a look to this and try after Stuart's talk to introduce these questions and cover everything. There will be a feedback form after this. We would appreciate if you could fill out this as well. Our topic today is how we learn stop worrying and love change, which will be presented by Stuart Moody. First of all, you might know the situation in your own area that you have created a tiny tool to just overcome a gap, and then this tool has been extremely successful, coming over and over and has been used by then multiple people, or just has been grown out the original purpose or the original scope of this. This could mean you have an increased user basis. This means you have an increased scope. So everyone is just happy with getting something which is actually working and solving the problems in the laboratory or in your area. And sometimes this becomes a challenge because then you maybe need to overcome this by increasing maintenance, or people are going away, or the scope is just that broad that you cannot support this anymore. So what to do now? You would need to look to what is the scope actually here. So do I need a new solution? Should I go to a commercial product? Or maybe can I go with an own product team to make this possible that we can do this. Then after making this decision, you can have to select, okay, what is the actual governance model for my project team, or what is the actually vendor I should go to? You might need to think about, okay, how do we implement this? How we take this to the change with the users? And then also, if there are any migrations needed, how to do this. And Stuart will give us an example on exactly how these kind of challenges can look like. Interesting. However, wega also supports you in these kind of journeys with our 360 service offerings. We can support you from the initial discussion, what is it, what you need, up to the government, the change management, and also the technical migration of your data to the new project, if needed. If you have any interest in talking to us right today, our colleagues are already in Vienna on the SLS. Next week already Future Labs Live here in, not here in Basel as I'm in Berlin, but in Basel, so look to them. In Berlin in June we have the MedTech Summit in Berlin, where also our colleagues will be available. And the maybe most important event this year is the Sample Management Symposium in Basel 2026. After the great success of last year, wega together with Novartis are organizing the second version of this event. Our speaker today, Stuart Moody, has originally studied molecular biology at the USC. He has spent his PhD time with modeling protein nucleotide interactions, which I think is already extremely advanced. Then he has spent several years as software developer at the Amble. In year 2020, he joined Novo Nordisk and now filling out the role as a sample management lead. This means Stuart is responsible for all the large automated storages and all the logistics around this for requesting of this. But Stuart, in addition to this function, is also the topic lead for sample management in the target discovery area. And by this, Stuart is not influencing his own area and organizing how sample management is working in his unit. Stuart is influencing the entire Novo Nordisk strategy around sample management. And with this, a warm welcome to Stuart and his presentation for today.
Yes, thank you, Sebastian, and thanks for that nice introduction. And just bear with me as the slides load up. So thanks very much to Wega for the invitation to talk. It's been fun putting this presentation together. I've been having a real serious looking at my past life for the last year and a half, 2 years, and what we've done. So hopefully you'll learn something. We certainly learned a lot in the last year and a half or so. But what I want to talk about is how our you could call it a change management journey in Novo Nordisk, about how we migrated to using a vendor tool from a kind of in-house custom, an in-house tool that was developed in-house, tailored specifically for the organization, and the lessons we learned in trying to do that. So I this title is shamelessly, just 2 seconds. So this title is shamelessly stolen from the film Dr. Strangelove. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a great film. I would recommend it. And the subtitle was How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. And so my original idea for this picture was me sitting on top of a nuclear bomb with maybe a Mosaic logo on it. And then I thought maybe that's not the most complimentary kind of image. So we have what we have generated by AI. But yes, I think the idea is that, we have to accept these things. We can't change them. And maybe we should try and embrace them. So the problem. So just a bit of context about how we maybe slightly different to a traditional compound management setup in a large pharma. So the traditional view, traditional organization is you have a compound management department where people can request amount of formulated or solubilized compound or the solid compound. Often this is, it's small molecules, but not exclusively. And the idea is that someone requests an amount, then technicians or scientists within the compound management department then get the sample from a store. They will weigh it out, either distribute it directly or they'll solubilize it. And then the solubilized tubes will then go out, or plates, if they're doing acid-ready plates, will go out to the user. And the key thing is that the flow typically is quite centralized, so that if you want to do get compound, etc., you just get it from the compound management department. Samples are typically not frozen, usually chilled or room temperature. DMSO often is it's used to solubilize the compounds, etc. And often Mosaic's used for this. And the good thing about this is that Mosaic is very highly optimized for this. This is I suppose, one of their first use cases. And so the people who are using Mosaic within the organization are very skilled in using it because they use it all the time. And you'll find that, so for example, that the requester and the user may not see Mosaic at all, or if they do, they see a very, very limited, simplified version of Mosaic. Now, excuse me. So this is where we are in Novo Nordisk, and we have quite a distributed workflow. We're much less centralized. And so you can see here, this is a this is the core workflow for in vitro analysis. So you have synthesis, either recombinant synthesis of peptide and protein or a chemical synthesis of peptides. And then these peptides, for example, are either stored in our central stores. We have a sample store, which we call the solid store 20. that's at -20 degrees. And then this is kind of typically excess compound goes here, and a lot of the compound goes straight to analysis departments, or the majority of it goes to what we call the in vitro workflow, where we have a workflow within the formulation delivery department, which I'm part of, where we solubilize compound, and then that's made available, that's in vials of a standard size, and that's made available from two compound stores, SPT LabTech compound stores, where people can order. These are self-service stores where users basically just come up, get the samples out themselves from the store. And we also have a -80 bio store, which we call the liquid store 80, and that's where we store proteins. In a similar way, a lot of the protein goes direct for analysis, and some of it comes to the store and then is requested later. And this is managed by a compound management department as well as the store. And so we have operators. Anyone who's got any of these Azenta stores knows that you need to keep an eye on them. And so we have operators who are trained to use them and get samples out for people. And I think the key point is that our samples are frozen. We avoid doing weighing, largely because they're frozen, but also because it's just an extra hassle. It's quite a manual step. There's not really a good way of automating it. And that means that we tend to have quite a lot of different aliquot sizes because the samples are frozen, we can't just aliquot on demand very easily. We have to thaw, and we want to avoid freeze-thaw cycles for the stability of the proteins, etc. And that means that a lot of the work is actually people requesting from the stores, and we have more than 400 users who are actually accessing the stores directly to order out the stores. And we have a lot of occasional users. So some people use the stores, use the ordering every day. There'll be other people who do every few weeks. And so there's a kind of wide range of experiences and business use cases that we experience with this. And so here this illustrates some of we have different vial types for our sample store, for the solid store 20. And then and this is kind of the key workflow. So a requester will order, they will basically select what tubes they want from a given store, and then they will then collect the tubes from the particular store they're interested in. Okay. So where are we now? What's the starting point? Well, we basically have this in-house tool called the Project Logistics Toolbox, or PLT, that we've been using for about 15 years or so, I think. And there you can see here we have a kind of batch number system, which you can see just here. It's got 4 digit groups, and then a batch identifier at the very end. And you can search for that, and then you can basically get you can find out batches and information about the batches, and then you basically can select a batch and then find information about the samples associated with the batch. This is the barcode for the container or for the tube, and we have like different states. It's in stock, it's basically consumed, etc., etc. And this is very popular. It's aging. I mean, if you close your laptop and reopen it again, then you lose the connection to the database and things like that. So it's kind of like showing its age. And in an ideal world, would be a web application. So there was a need to do something about it. It also only handles tubes. It doesn't handle racks and plates, etc. So what we decided quite a few years ago now was to go with Mosaic and migrate from PLT over to Mosaic and make Mosaic our standard inventory management platform. That has the benefit of out the box, we get support for automated stores, for liquid handlers, for rack scanners. It can handle racks and plates, which, as I said, PLT can't. And there's quite a lot of advantages that we can get, and additional functionality we can get in Mosaic that we can't get in PLT as it stands. And obviously there was a move away, which is quite common in the industry, to move away from doing in-house software development as much as possible and try and use vendor solutions where we can. So rollout Mosaic. So as I said, we've been doing this for a number of years, and we'd kind of about 2 years or so, we'd kind of, in my opinion anyway, I think we'd kind of drifted a bit. There's lots of competing desires to try and use Mosaic in different areas, but we were struggling. There were so many use cases, so many users. It was really quite difficult for the team that were doing the rollout, the IMS team, to know where to start. And so what we decided to do was really kind of try and refocus the debate about how we should do it, and try and prioritize, how we should do the rollout. And so I kind of was coming along at this point, and I kind of thought the simplest, what we want is we want a really simple objective. It's really easy to understand. It's very easy to communicate. And so therefore we went with decommissioning PLT. Just that as a single goal was actually very powerful, because it basically meant that by the act of decommissioning then basically forced you to do a whole number of things, migrate, the remaining automated stores over, the remaining data, the manual freezers that we had managed by PLT, all that had to be migrated over, and we had to basically work out how we were going to do that. And that sort of was, I think, one of the keys. And then also what the key thing was obviously to say, once it's easy to say we were going to prioritize decommissioning PLT, but the key thing was we had to really do it, and that meant down prioritizing other tasks that people wanted doing. And so this just kind of goes on to the organizational challenges that we have, and I think this is quite typical of the large pharma. I'm in this department here. This is my team who manage the automated stores, and then we're in therapeutic discovery, which is part of R&D. We do a lot of the analysis work and the preparation of API, etc., for projects. And so this is kind of like, if you like, the lab world, sometimes called line of business by people in IT. I kind of like to think we're all part of the same organization. So this is the lab world, if you like. And then this is a research IT organization. The A stands for AI. You'll be surprised to know, given that we're a large pharma. And the key team here was the IMS team, the inventory management system team, who are basically responsible for the Mosaic rollout. And what the struggle that the guys in the IMS team were having is they were responsible for doing the rollout. They were doing the rollout from IT, so it was effectively a push. They were trying to push it into the labs. And this was a struggle, because then they felt obligated to try and solve all the problems about, how do we integrate it with business processes? And of course, they're not experts in the business processes in the labs itself. And it was really proving a challenge, quite daunting. There's so much detail to think about. How can we do this, And what I kind of wanted us to do is really sort of reformulate this problem and say, right, this shouldn't be a push. This should be a pull. We should be basically pulling from the labs to say, we want this. This is, and this is how we can basically integrate it with our business processes. And my idea was that we should ideally not be so beholden to say the software must conform with the way we do things now, but we have to be prepared to adapt the way we do things to fit in with, improved sample management, logistics techniques, and also with the software, Mosaic software. So the way we formulated this task was we created a project, Mosaic migration project, and I managed to persuade management to give me some money. Again, that's where the kind of simple communication really helped. It was very clear what we're trying to do, and basically, I now got a team of consultants. So I had 3 people from Vega. So I had a project manager, Celine. I had a business analyst and factotum, someone who's just generally useful. It was Carol. She might have called herself a dog's body, but I like to think of a slightly better term for that. And then we had Guillaume, who was our Mosaic SME. And I think that's quite important, because obviously IMS had consultancy from Novo, and they had Mosaic experts within their department. But although we were prioritizing this, they were still working on some other tasks as well. So it was useful just for me to have a Mosaic person who basically worked for me, and we could basically knew that they were 100% dedicated to this project, and that proved really very important for us. And then finally, we had a consultant, Carol, another Carol from Implement, who helped us with the change management and the communication, which was really vitally important. It was, I think it's certainly something not to be underestimated. So the strategy, how would we do this? So I think the first thing was we wanted to aim to use Mosaic as much as possible as it was. So basically use vanilla Mosaic, obviously customized, but not provide or not get enhancements from Titian, customized enhancements were just for us, but also not to basically use bespoke code, our own code as well. We try and minimize that as much as possible. And then the other thing was to start off with our automated stores, our solid store and liquid store. And the reason for that was that basically was a majority of use cases. It was actually quite a simple thing it was quite simple to do in terms of like the project planning. It wasn't simple to do technically, but that basically gave us a kind of clear, if we kind of got that done, we'd probably solved about 70%, 80% of the problem of the decommissioning of PLT. And then, as I say, we had to deprioritize everything else. And that's quite a struggle organizationally. I think we did manage to do that though. And then finally, we would basically focus on the manual stores and the remaining samples that weren't actually in a store, but were in PLT. And one of the challenges as well, we had quite a lot of data that was essentially junk data, samples that existed in PLT that actually don't exist anywhere else. And that's much more a problem for the manual stores. And so that's what we're actually dealing with now. So how would we go and do this? Well, naively, you might say, right, okay, we've got to migrate everything from PLT to Mosaic. We've got to do a whole big data migration. We've got to get people to use the new interfaces. So let's just do it all in one go. Let's just, let's just big bang, switch one day, everyone has to turn around and start using Mosaic. And we thought that was a terrible idea because the likelihood of something going wrong is really high. And so therefore, the likelihood of us ending up to have to roll back the whole thing was also very high. And so what we decided to do was basically do it in phases. And actually, this is technically harder. So what we'd first of all do is started on the liquid store 80. And they order it, so all the data would be migrated to Mosaic, and the ordering from the stores and the management of the stores would be handled by Mosaic. But the upstream processes where basically where API is generated or samples are generated and then loaded into the store, that was basically handled in the existing systems in PLT. And then we had so the IMS team had created a kind of synchronization service that basically took data from PLT and put it into Mosaic. So which enabled this to happen. So the idea is you get the idea now. So once we've done the liquid store, we do the solid store, get that all kind of under Mosaic control. Then the upstream, the registration for the liquid store would basically all migrate over to Mosaic. So we were completely in a Mosaic for this part of the workflow. And then finally, the whole thing would basically be a Mosaic only workflow. And this was perhaps the most complicated part. There was quite a lot of dependencies and different workflows that had to be migrated over. So leaving it to last as well meant we gained a lot of experience about how to do this. So let's just take stock. Where are we? Well, first of all, we had to focus and prioritize. And then we had to have a simple and clear message. That simple and clear message which really helped the focus and prioritization, and it also helped the management buy-in. From our particular case, research IT wanted to get rid of PLT because it was a maintenance burden for them. And from the lab side, we wanted to basically just have one system for sample management. So actually, it was a really easy kind of, well, not easy, but it was a relatively easy sell to management. And then finally, we wanted to have project with milestones, and that strategy, those phases I just showed you, were really good because they were real concrete milestones that were really easy to understand. It meant it was really easy to measure our progress. It was really easy. Then it gave management confidence that we could see that we were making progress, and they could measure our success as well, by the response to each of the phases. So that's the preamble. We've kind of set everything up, and now let's just do it. So before we dive in, one of the things we had to think about was how could we use Mosaic for our particular use case. And one of the challenges we have is that we had a different identifier for API for solid compounds than for liquid, solubilized compounds. So this is what we call a formulation. So if you have this batch number, you've got the three groups of four digits, and then the batch number. If it's the middle is a 0, then it's a compound, and then if you formulate it, if you add a solution, then you need to give it a different number in this middle four digit group. So the challenge for us was that most people who were searching for compounds typically know this because the projects tend to sort of work using this identifier for the API, but you can have multiple different formulations for a particular API. So they would not typically want to search for this, they'd want to search on this. And that was a challenge for Mosaic. And the other challenge we had is that we were having, as I mentioned before, multiple vial types in the different stores. And so the kind of standard way of ordering in Mosaic and the kind of simple ordering, the simplest way to order in Mosaic didn't support either of those workflows. And so that basically meant that we were left with the more complicated workflow where you would have to basically search in Mosaic, first of all, using this kind of search form. We managed to sort of we pre-generated the forms that people would use, so they kind of didn't have to sort of do it from scratch. Then you would get a list of the tubes for a particular batch that you were searching for, and then you would choose the batches based on the amount available and the concentration, etc. You'd choose the batches you wanted to order out. Then you'd add, sorry, I'll just go back. You'd select what you wanted and you'd export. Click the export button, you'd export into an order, and then the order is here. And it would basically, if everything's okay, it would tell you it's okay. And this is the advanced ordering for those that are Mosaic experts. And that's quite a complex way of doing things. There's an awful lot of tabs here, and it can get quite confusing quite quickly for people. So anyway, that's how we were going to do it. And we sort of prepared everything, and we were kind of almost ready to go with our phase one, sort of the liquid store. You'll see sometimes we use the store name BioStore. We kind of changed the way we named the stores towards the end of this process, so you'll see both names. But the key thing here is I want to communicate is that we did a lot of change management and a lot of communication. So we had a SharePoint site where we basically stored our announcements, and we basically emailed people with announcements regularly with key milestones. We aimed to have fixed dates. If we committed to a date and said it was going to happen on a date, it was really important that we made that happen. We had a training so we had training documentation, PowerPoints, etc. We ran training sessions which we videoed, and then you could watch the video later. And after we rolled out, we always had a hypercare where you could basically, we were all monitoring Teams. It was a dedicated Teams channel, and if you had a problem, just put it in the chat and we would help you. Often what would happen is we'd get Carol to swoop in and basically have a one-to-one session. And that was useful because it was obviously helpful for the person, but it would also be really useful for us to work out why they were basically struggling, and what could we do different to basically improve our training and help the kind of change management process. So here's the plan. This is kind of the general structure of what we did. We'd have a go, no go, where we basically have a checklist of things that had to be either done or we were really certain it would be done in time for our go live. We had a go live date, which was typically a few weeks after our go, no go decision, and the idea was that this was a fixed date that we communicated to users, and we were really confident we'd make that date. We didn't want to change it because obviously the whole point of change management is you're getting people to, you have to prepare people for a change, you have to make the change, and you have to basically then follow up on the change and carry on with training and things like that. And there's a lot of organization, and in the labs, people have to know what's happening so they can work around that as well. So it was really important that we gave people certainty. And so the way to achieve that then was when we did the actual migration. So we basically had to do migrate a whole lot of data. We had to connect the stores into the production instance of Mosaic, and there was a lot of stuff that had to happen just right. And there was a lot of things that therefore could go wrong. So what we did is we did a test, what we called the go live test, where we did everything for real. And then at the end of the test, if it all worked, we just roll it back and everything went back to the way it was. And the reason we did that, because that was like, it actually turned out when we did it, it all went well, the test. There was a few glitches, but mostly it worked. And it was a bit like, oh, well, do we really want to put it back? But the reason we did was because we had to be, when you do a test, you have to expect something to fail. And there was always a danger that we had a big problem. We had a big problem. And then so we gave ourselves a week, basically, between this go live test and then the actual migration for real. And the idea was that we then had a week to mitigate any serious problems and sort of make sure that we could actually do it the following week. Anyway, as it was, it all went swimmingly. And when we rolled it back and then we did the migration for real, that went even more smoothly because we'd already done it. And then we went go live as expected on the 31st of March. So we were really happy because that had gone really smoothly. And the whole technical migration and everything, as I say, there was a few glitches at first, but overall it was a big success. And we're all patting ourselves in the back saying how happy we were. We went into hypercare and everything seemed to be okay. People were able to order from the liquid store and it seemed fine, except it wasn't. And what we found was that, and this is the weirdest thing, we expected there to be problems with people ordering from the liquid store, and actually it turned out that was fine. But the problem was we were having problems with people ordering from the in vitro stores, and this has been around. This way of ordering had been around for about 2 years, hadn't been changed. People were happy with it. People were using it, and it really turned out what was happening is that if you remember, we were ordering individual tubes from Mosaic with the liquid store, and so what was happening was that people weren't sure where their samples were. I'll go into the next slide. So people weren't sure where their samples were, and so they were wanting maybe something from an in vitro store. We'd basically given them training to say do this search. So they were doing searches for tubes. It was in the in vitro store, and they weren't really sure what to do, so they just add the tubes into the liquid store order form, and then they'd obviously get this invalid message. And this was really surprising to us, as I say, and so we kind of investigated why this kept happening, and it was starting to be a problem. I mean, this is our biggest support issue that we had, and it was quite a support burden on the team managing the stores as well. So we kind of did some investigation. And I think because we're so close to the problem, we kind of assumed that everyone would understand where their samples were, what store their samples were in. And then we did a survey, and you can see here that, only 50% of respondents basically said that they did know where their sample was located. And if you think about it, why would you need to know that? That's kind of technical detail. You just need to know, previously when you were using PLT, you just basically, it would help you, it would guide you through ordering. You would add a tube to a basket in PLT and it would order it from the right store. So this was a real challenge for us. And the next issue that we had feedback on, and we kind of expected it, was, and you can imagine if you've seen, when I showed you earlier the steps you needed to order, there's quite a lot of clicks and it's not the most intuitive way of doing things. And we had a lot of feedback about the usability. People were really unhappy about having to use this way of doing things through Mosaic. We did, as I say, a survey, and then we got responses, how comfortable are you ordering from the compound store? Again, this is something people were happy with before we made this change, and it'd been working for about a couple of years, and now people were unhappy with this. And then people were unhappy with, even more unhappy with ordering from the liquid store. They were getting, feedback. Too many clicks was a really common thing that we heard from people. I mean, we got people, why are you doing this? Why are you changing? Can't we just go back to PLT? I knew how to use PLT. And this is just so confusing. I just don't understand what I'm supposed to do. So what do we do? Well, we thought, well, let's keep moving forward. Let's try and address those issues as well, but let's keep moving forward. And so the next phase was to do the solid store. And again, same kind of setup. We'd basically have the migration aimed before the summer of last year. We'd have a go, no go, where we went through our checklist. And before that, we'd had some feedback from some guys in research chemistry that Mosaic didn't actually show amounts of compound in moles and only in grams. And that was indeed true. Mosaic didn't support that. And we thought, well, okay, that is a problem. We got feedback as well from Novo that wasn't an easy fix. We kind of weren't sure if we'd be able to get that. And we thought, well, there's only one or two people, do we go, do we not go? So we kind of were going ahead and we thought, well, let's live with it and let's try and, mitigate it once we've gone live. But just the sort of week before the go, no go decision, it really became apparent. I'd started worrying about it and started asking around, and it was really a big deal. It affected a lot more people than we thought at first. And we could see that this was really going to, people could have lived with it, but it would have just been, given the usability problems we were having, it would have been a big problem for the credibility of the project. So what do we do? Well, I said, okay, no, I kind of vetoed it. I said, we can't go. And that was a really difficult decision because the team, the IMS team in particular, were all raring to go. Everything was all set up. And we were just ready to press the button. There's an expectation we were going to go. And so actually it was really quite hard for morale for all of us because we'd had quite a lot. Although there'd been issues with the liquid store, we'd done a good job. And so it was quite demoralizing to have to go and pick up the pieces again and take stock. But I think it was the right thing to do. So we kind of used this opportunity to sort of try and see how we could address some of the other issues we were having. So for the ordering issue that we had with Liquid Store, what we tried to do is, and this is something that Guillaume was great and helped us with, was to basically have a kind of simplified way of ordering so that you just had one path. So when you search for a batch and you got a list of tubes, then you would basically get the store location, and then you could add that to a different order. If it was in the liquid or solid store, you'd add it to one order type, and if it was in the in vitro store, you'd add it to another order type. And that the idea was that it was a lot simpler for people to use and kind of one path through the system. And then Novo did a great job, and they really went back and thought about how they could fix the problem with the moles for us. And David Booth was a great help. Thanks, David, for that. And we basically got mole amounts into Mosaic, and that was a big relief because I think that was looking to be a blocker actually for the rollout. Then the next issue we had was that we had feedback from the tech coordinators, or the people that kind of control the amount of, monitor the amount of API that a project needs, that they didn't have any information. So this is basically after the liquid store rollout. They didn't have the information they needed. They didn't have batch level summaries. And it turns out they were using PLT for this. When you created a batch, you'd say how much was prepared. And when you used a batch in PLT, then the amount was decreased depending on how much was consumed in the tube. And Mosaic can't handle this because Mosaic isn't designed to do this. And so we were like, oh, okay, this is a problem. And we knew it was kind of a feature that wasn't there, but we weren't sure how important it was. And it turned out it was very important, and it was really important for the running of projects. And again, this is a testament to us doing it bit by bit. The liquid store had the smallest number of users. So although this was had an impact, it wasn't major. If we'd gone straight and done everything at once and done the solid store, then this would have been a real big problem for the projects and could have slowed them down. So how did we fix this? Well, Matteo and Anna came up with, basically produced a Spotfire view for us where we could get these summary amounts. So you could get basically a summary of the amount for a particular batch. And that was exactly what the tech coordinators needed. And we managed to get that turned around in a couple of months after the issue was raised. And that was over the summer holidays as well. So, that was great. We kind of responded. We had an issue, we responded to it, and the users were happy that we'd actually turned it around quite quickly. So we were ready to go. We'd actually done a lot of remedial work. We'd kind of fixed the major blockers that we thought we had. We'd done a lot of extra training and things like that. We had to simplify the streamlined workflow. So we thought we were good to go. So this time we were now into August. And so we now rolled out in the sort of towards the end of August. And again, technically everything went well, and we were really happy. And so we then held our breath and just got users started using the new system, and we just really hoped that we basically fixed a lot of the issues that people were talking about. But yes, I suppose you could tell what was coming. It wasn't as straightforward as we hoped. And so what was the problem? Well, it was the same thing. It was wrong store. So people were ordering, even with the streamlined ordering, we were still getting people adding tubes that were meant for the in vitro store into the liquid store and solid store ordering form. And then we get errors like this, which were confusing for people. And it really was just, it was just really proving to be a real problem. We tried. So how do we deal with this? Well, we tried more and more training, more communication, one-to-one training, really kind of being hands-on, trying to sort of mitigate it, sort of like forms like, instruction, documentation like this, giving instructions about what the error messages mean, what to do about it. And then we even had like, one-pager guides and things like that. But it really didn't make a massive impact. And I think some of it is that, we're providing these training materials, but a lot of people weren't reading them. And that's the thing, you can't force people to read them. And I think there's a resistance to sort of like using training materials. People just wanted to sort of order from the stores. I didn't want to spend, as someone said to me, I don't want to spend 20 minutes reading a video in order to do this kind of ordering. And you could argue, that's right or wrong, but that's reality that we were in. So again, too many clicks, it's confusing. And I just want PLT back. Why are you making us change? So this really was the kind of crunch point of the project, I would say. We'd kind of moved forward, but we were getting a lot of pushback. Our support cases had gone up a lot, in particular for the team managing the stores. It was becoming quite a burden for them to sort of deal with all the support issues that we were getting. And these were our options. Do we live with it? Do we, as carry on as we are, do we try and do something like reaching out and do more outreach, do more training? And the thing is, we'd done a lot of that already. And what we were finding is that the people that were using the system regularly were actually fine. There was a lot of people that, I would say maybe 2/3 of users were fine. But there was people that used the system occasionally, or maybe weren't so confident with IT, etc. And they were struggling. And that's where a lot of the errors were coming from. And that was just constantly, that didn't seem to be decreasing over time. And so our third option was to actually kind of break one of our key strategic goals and actually do some more custom code development to address some of the issues with the user interface and the user friendliness. And so we decided to do that. And actually one of the benefits is that we'd actually had a platform that did some of this already that we'd kind of deprecated when we moved forward to do this. And so we're called Sama. And so what we could do is we could build on this tool Sama to actually then introduce a simplified ordering form. And so you can see this is how it looks now, or it looked. Well, actually, this is how it looks now, but this is pretty much how it looked when we rolled it out. So you can search for the batch, but it's intelligent. It basically knows about our business processes, so it knows you can basically have formulations and batches related to each other. So you can see the formulations here, the API batches here, and you can just select a batch you're interested in, and then it'll show you the tubes that you can order from. But the key thing was we had a basket kind of paradigm for an order form. for ordering. And this was the game changer, because this meant that you couldn't order into the wrong store or order from the wrong store. If you added this basket, then this basket meant that I was always ordering from the in vitro store. Likewise for the liquid store. And that was the key thing. I mean, users like this. The interface was a lot nicer, and it was a lot simpler for them to understand. And for us, it basically meant that a lot of these kind of support issues that we were having would just disappear. So I'll just kind of wrap up really and complete the story. So we kind of worked on SAMA for the IMS team did, and Simon, Suna, and Philip did a great job working on this, and very talented developers. And so within about 2 months, we had this kind of the first version of this working, and we rolled it out in November 25. It wasn't like it wasn't perfect when we first did it. There was performance issues and things like that when it first hit users, and there was a little bit of minor grumbling about that. But the key thing is that they listened, they basically got feedback from people, and they basically worked on those those performance issues. They worked on straight away, prioritized fixes for that. So within few weeks, the system was a lot better. People were really happy with it, and I think that's a lesson, is you don't necessarily need to get it right, but you need to respond to the issues quickly. And then the kind of final stages were that we kind of got the liquid store upstream done in November. And November was a very busy month for us. And then we got the rest of it all done in March of this year. So where we are now is that we've basically, I'll just go back, where we are now is that we've basically got all the automated stores and everything done now. And now we're kind of working on the rest of the samples and migrating those over to Mosaic. So I'm almost done. I'll give you time for a Q&A. But what are the lessons? Communication, I think, is key. We did a lot of communication. We did a lot of good communication. And that's, I think, thanks to having Carol for the OCM. She did a great job in guiding us. It's like, the question of how often do you communicate with users? You worry about doing it too much, but sometimes you can not do it enough. What's the best channel for communicating with people? I think the other thing is just making sure you listen to the users. That was one of, I think, my jobs. If I bumped into someone who I knew was a user in the corridor, I'd ask them how they thought it was going, and then ask them to tell me honestly how they thought it was going, not tell me what I wanted to hear. And that was often very useful, very anecdotal, obviously, but still useful. And I think it's, maybe you call it the masochist strategy, listen to frustrated users. I had a particularly difficult session, last June, where I was presenting on the status, and basically I had half an hour of people just telling me how terrible it was and laying into me. And that was really useful, because it was obviously good to get that feedback. I think it was maybe, I kind of like, I think it was quite good for everyone, because when they did that, we kind of listened, and then we actually fixed a lot of the issues they were talking about, and actually gave us a lot of credibility with our users. Don't underestimate inertia. People like just keep doing what they're doing, and they don't want to change, and they're often busy, and like ordering from a store is not the key thing in their life. So basically, that you just expect that it's going to be difficult to shift people. I mean, one thing that we found surprising is when we introduced SAMA, we expect, given the feedback we'd had, that everyone would move from Mosaic over to SAMA straight away. But actually, it took some time, and part of it was people were saying, well, I'm using Mosaic, I'm used to it, so I'm just kind of like just keeping using it, which was a real surprise to us. And actually, it really had me worried that we'd actually committed all this effort to SAMA for no good reason. But actually, I mean, time has shown that that was the right thing to do, definitely. And it's sort of, you could see with the support cases that went down. Adapt, and I think that's crucial. Get feedback quickly, and then basically deal with it, fix it, and move rapidly. And that's the challenge. Moving rapidly is a challenge, especially in a bigger organization like Novo Nordisk. But it's essential. If we basically fixed some of these problems, but we'd done it this year, then we might not have got that far. They might have closed down the project because people were so unhappy with it. So I think the key thing is to sort of adapt and move quickly. And then sticking to your objectives is really important. We did all this. I mean, those of you kind of know the industry know that Novo went through a lot of change last year. We made a large number of redundancies. Our IT organization lost 40% of its staff. And we managed to keep going through all of that. And how was that? Well, we had clear objectives, very clear business goals, and we stuck to them and we communicated them. And that meant actually when all this reorg happened, we were still prioritized and given space to carry on because we were seen as a success and people could understand what we were doing. And then the other thing, which is really hard, is that you tend to get, I mean, I've given you a lot of negative feedback in this presentation, and that's a lot of the feedback we got. But negative voices are amplified. People do tell you if something's good, and I've had positive feedback now. But you're more likely in surveys and everything you do to get the negative voices, and it's the difficult one. It's a real judgment call to how much weight that you put on when you hear about problems. And I didn't have space in my template here for a sixth lesson, but this is a key one. Usability is very important. And I think it's interesting. I would say, having been in this industry for a while, it's more important than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago. People expect a really slick user experience. We're all used to using quite nice, slick apps on our phone. And people just expect to know how to use an interface and don't expect to have to read a training manual to basically use something. And I think that's one of the challenges we had. We were trying to give training to people, and a lot of people weren't looking at it. So, really a big point. So where are we now? We're almost finished decommissioning PLT. We're aiming to get that done in Q4 of this year with the remaining content, as I mentioned. SAMA has been very popular with users and is improving over time. And our kind of challenge is not to basically try and widen the scope of SAMA too much. This is kind of a maintenance burden, obviously, for the IMS team. So we don't want them to have to do too much. We just have to do what's essential. So the rule is that we should use functionality in Mosaic as a priority. And if there's an obvious gap, then we'll try and fill it with SAMA. And then, but what's great as well is in doing this, we've had a lot more interest in using Mosaic, and that really is starting to, gain a lot of traction. We've had a lot of people saying, okay, people's first assumption is, I need to track my samples. How do I do that? Oh, can I use, I need to track samples in my freezer. Can I use Mosaic for that, please? And I think this whole kind of journey, because there's been so much comms and stuff, has basically really raised the profile of the tool within the organization. And I think because we've now got the success story that we managed to make this change and it's worked, people have much more confidence in using it and are aware of what they should use it for. So, going back to the original title of the talk, did we learn to love change? I suspect, especially after the year we had last year with all the reorganization, people don't love change, but I think people can accept it. And I think if they can see some of the benefits of the change, I think that helps as well. And I think, one of the nice anecdotal things I heard in a meeting recently was someone was saying, oh, well, the Mosaic or SAMA doesn't do this yet, but we're going to speak to them about it, and we think they'll be able to fix it. And I think that's a real nice thing. That's a real that's a real change from the attitude that was prevalent about 18 months ago or so, that we are guys that can fix this problem. And so therefore people accept change because they can, it might be difficult, but because you're helping, they think you'll help them now, then I think they can really kind of embrace it. So I'm just going to wrap up now quickly, but you can see there was a lot of people involved in this. We had great help from Wega. I forgot to mention Stephen, who was a consultant for Wega that worked on us doing business analysis at the very early part of the project. And the IMS team, who did a brilliant job. Pedro, who's the product owner for the team, and the rest of them were it was brilliant. And obviously Simon, who was product owner at the very start of this, but left Novo last year. And so yes, with that, I'll try and make sure I give you some time for questions. And while we're doing questions, I'll show you this plug for the Sample Management Symposium in September. I went to it last year. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was really well organized, and it was really great to speak to peers and find out more about how they do things. I think there's also a Novo Mosaic user group meeting tagged onto the back of this, maybe. I'm not exactly sure when, but look out for that if you're interested. So I'll hand you over to questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe a question from my side before we go into the audience. You have mentioned that you cannot underestimate the user management of all of this. Actually, I would like to understand, especially these negative voices, how have you managed to convince them to positive voices, or how have you addressed them directly in the survey?
Well, I mean, the thing was we did. You can tell people what you want, you can communicate everything you want, but we basically made tangible changes to what we did. And we basically fixed a lot of their concerns, and I think that was the biggest thing. People tell you have a problem, and then we fixed it. With this Spotfire view that we produced, we got so much good feedback that we'd actually done something quickly when they'd basically complained about something, and that really gave us a lot of credibility.
Great, thank you very much. Markus, I have seen your question. Maybe I have the second question first, because it's more into the topic. Stuart, do you have any recommendation how to upskill your team in change management?
Well, yes, I think getting someone. I mean, we had Carol in as our change management expert, and I think she was really great at doing that, and I think that's really the way of doing it, was just get someone in who knows what they're doing. But she was very hands-on, because I've had other people who kind of do change management and tell you about change management strategy, but leave you to get on with it. But she did it, and I think that's the key thing: is you see someone doing it and you learn from someone doing it well.
So having professionals in as part of your team.
Yes, basically.
Okay. There's a question regarding Sama. So what technology is behind Sama?
Oh, well, I can't tell you, but what I can do is Marcus, maybe I can put you in touch with Simon, the tech lead from the IMS team, and he can tell you. I can't. I don't know.
Stuart, another question is, when you have to start the project again, and you have shown the timeline and the plan and the new plan, and also you have illustrated that you are still in the process of PLT documentation, so it's a journey. What do you think is the key thing you would do different from the very beginning?
It's a difficult one, because some of the problems we had, I kind of look back and say, could we have anticipated them better? Should we have done better business analysis? And so maybe that was it, but I'm not really sure either. I think because of the distributed nature of the organization, I suspect we could have done more business analysis, and maybe we still would have hit some of the problems. So I think broadly, I mean, maybe we should have accepted. I don't know. I'm not sure I would change anything, because I think although we had to change to use Sama later, I think there might come a time in the future where someone says to us, "Why are you using this custom software? Why not using Mosaic?" And now we can justify it. We can say, "Well, we didn't, and this is the reason why we're doing it." When obviously all organizations are trying to sort of reduce costs and things like that. So, you can see that happening in the future. So I think even doing it this way basically means we learn and can justify what we've done based on our experiences.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Do we have questions in the room? Karim?
Yes, I have one question. Thank you for the presentation, and I fully agree with your lessons learned, and especially the one saying that users don't want documentation. Maybe, I don't know, Apple started this trend of having applications with no documentation that you can use without documentation, but that's how it is. You started this Mosaic migration with the idea of using a single system. Finally, you ended up with because you maybe wanted to do less in-house development, and finally you implemented the SAMA solution. So as a lesson learned, would you say that we cannot get rid of the developers, in-house development?
No, I mean, I think you always need. I mean, you always need in-house development because you need glue. You know, even if everything had worked, you know, if we managed to have all the user interface in Mosaic, we still would have need some development work, you know, to help with some things. You know, I didn't show it here, but we've got, as you'll know, we've got some tools that basically help with the registration processes and stuff like that. And there's always inevitably little, you know, small things that, you know, help the users that are really tailored to the way they do things that inevitably I think you have to do in-house. But the key thing is to minimize it, you know.
Thank you.
There was a question here. Yeah, maybe another similar stance, but from a change management point of view. It seems like there was a lot of vanilla push of the system from a strategy point of view, but from a change management perspective, typically you engage users in the design, but this was not done afterwards. Was there some learning in that? Because a lot of this feedback, if it would have been from frequent users or non-frequent users about clicks and usability, could have been picked up at the beginning of the project versus at the end?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you see, I mean, we basically, you know, where we were was we wanted to basically, so we knew that, again, it's this whole thing about, I was saying negative voices, you know, it's like we knew that it wasn't the optimal way of doing it, and it was it wasn't as good as before, but we wanted to sort of try, and I think originally what our hope had been that we wouldn't have to basically use Mosaic in the way we did it. We hoped that we could actually use, say, simple ordering or some of the other types of ordering to make things a bit more effective. And in the end, we kind of had to go with that way of ordering, and it was, and so we were, you know, so it basically meant that the user interface wasn't so good. But the thing is, there's a lot of people who ended up being, you know, quite happy with that. I mean, they weren't massively happy with it, but they were quite content with it. And I think this is the thing. It was like this, but you know, so there was a possibility at the beginning that we, you know, although we were getting some negative feedback from people, that we would basically be able to sort of like use the Mosaic solution over, you know, for everyone, and we'd basically be able to overcome some of those issues. So as I say, it wasn't as clear cut as that, you know, so we could have said at the beginning that we needed to basically do something like SAMA, but as I say, you know, you couldn't be sure until we did it. And I think this is one of the reasons why people like to do things like Agile, is that, you know, often putting something in front of people and actually getting them to use it is actually where you start to really understand, you know, what the issues are with the system, etc. This is one of the things presenting this, you know, it's like the benefit of hindsight, you know.
Yeah.
So this is you know, and I think this is, you know, so there was, and then also the other thing is we had to make progress as well. And one of the things, this is competing. If we stopped and spent 6 months doing business analysis and trying to get it perfect, well, probably wouldn't have got it perfect. But, you know, the reorg might have come along and we might have found we were out of a job because we hadn't done anything, you know. So I think there's all these balancing kind of like, you know, issues that you've got to think about.
I guess it doesn't have to be 6 months. That kind of agile approach or that change doesn't need to be 6 months.
No,
it's actually part of the change. Change isn't just the training and the comms.
Yes.
It just seems to be the missing element.
Yes.
I should thank you for sharing such a journey with us. I really enjoyed your story. My question is, how do you identify from the very beginning, from the user side, there's a need, there's a motivation to adapt a new method and a new tool, instead of doing this push, you're doing a pull of the technology. But how do you identify there's a need from the user side? Like I'm myself as a scientist, I understand the priority is to make sure experiment work well. So adopt a new method is extra work. And when is the good time to do such a pull instead of push strategy? Thank you.
I think you should always do it via pull. I think that, you know, I think you can't have, I mean, we don't all live in isolation. And I think one of the challenges with a big organization is that you can have your IT research organization who go through the whole thing of purchasing the software and they, you know, and they want to roll out the platform. But the reality is, especially in research and in the labs, you know, you need to have buy-in and investment in the tool that you're purchasing. So I think it always, you know, we should be aiming to do something like this. You know, especially if we want to make it a success.
So there's one more question from the chat regarding the collaboration between your area and ADI or the research IT. How have you experienced this, and have you faced any challenges with this split?
Yes, I mean, there was challenges. I think actually one of the challenges is often in language and communication. You know, people in the lab speak different to people in research IT or IT generally. So my background being from IT was really helpful here because I knew a lot of the people in the research IT organization. So I could try and, you know, reach in and speak to people and try and smooth things over. And I think I could also sometimes would act as a translator, you know, for colleagues in the lab side of things, just to try and say, you know, when we were talking about business objectives or business analysis, this is what it really means, you know. So it was a challenge. And I think one of the, going back to the original point about doing more business analysis, one of the challenges we've had is that we'd had quite a lot of people coming in doing business analysis and writing documents about our processes and then disappearing and nothing happening. And there was a lot of resistance to basically spending more time having people coming in, you know, doing business analysis, you know, for this project. Because like, well, I've told someone this 3 times already. Why are you asking me again? And I think, so those are the kind of things that we, you know, it was challenging. And I think, you know, how do you fix that? The key thing really was, I mean, translating between the organizations, I think, is recognizing using different language is key. But the other thing is just deliver, because I mean, unless you deliver and you deliver when you say you're going to deliver or close to it, then the people in the lab who are busy and want to get stuff done, you don't have credibility with them, you know, and that's the key thing, I think.
Stuart, maybe a follow-up question on this. First of all, would it be fair to cite you with the phrase, it's important to build the bridge between business and IT?
Yes. Is that the right answer? No, I mean, it clearly is. It clearly is. I mean, and I think for me, it's inevitable. Silos in an organization of Novo Nordisk size is inevitable. You can't organize something that big without them. And but those are the things that you need to overcome. I mean, I look at an organizational chart, and the first thing I'm looking for is the silos, and then I know where the challenges are and what we're trying to do, and work then to try and bridge them. Because, you know, we are one company, we are one organization, we should have the same goals. The guys in, you know, this is super, I mean, the guys in the IMS team, this has been great for them. I mean, it's been hard work, but they're super motivated because they can see some benefit to what they're doing, their impact in the business, you know, and so it's a win-win for everyone, I think.
Actually, with your background as a software development, with a life science background, you are perfectly equipped to actually do this translation. I'm wondering a bit, as you have mentioned, there has been multiple rounds of business analysis of your area. What has been the challenge with this, and why couldn't you not use them? Because the question was different, because someone just forgot that this work has been done or could not access this anymore, or has been there asked the wrong questions?
I think one of the challenges is that because we've got this distributed workflow, you know, that you'll go and do an analysis and someone will tell you what the theory is, you know, how it's supposed to work. Often they'll go and speak to a scientist, they won't speak to a technician, and they'll find out, you know, how it's supposed to work. But then there's always little exceptions. There's the little paths that other people use where they pass samples from one department to another and things like that. And that's the things that, you know, we were finding that we'd think we had a good idea of how it was working, and then we'd actually find there was some other thing that people did that we didn't know about. And I think there's just no way. I think there's no way around that. I think that's the thing that, again, you putting something for people to use really then confronts them with the challenges, and you realize that some people are unhappy and inconvenienced because you've done something, and then you need to fix it.
One of your colleagues from AstraZeneca is asking if you have asked or considered using AI or including AI features into the SAMA tool for the ordering process.
Okay. Karen, yes, hello. I believe you have an AI strategy as well as us. So yes, I mean, we haven't, because we've just been focusing on the nuts and bolts. But yeah, obviously, as with all our peers, I mean, AI is quite important, and maybe that's something we'll think about. I think my feeling is let's get the PLT decommissioning done first, and then and let's think about the AI strategy next. But I'd be interested to hear what you're thinking about, Karen, if you've got any ideas about this.
And I know it's unfair, Karen, as you are not able to speak, but you are also welcome to the Sample Management Symposium in Basel, and together with Stuart and others, continue this conversation.
Yes, still searching for some speakers, so if you have any things to present, would be perfect.
Stuart, maybe again a bit more technical question, but maybe someone else from our Mosaic experts can answer this. Do you have APIs to enable automated ordering? And here APIs, I assume, are the software side application programming interface.
Yes, we do. I mean, you could do that. We typically have made. I don't think we've not made those publicly available. One of the things with SAMA is it has Oh, good. So one of the things we have is SAMA has a kind of API layer that's kind of a higher level API layer, and I think we're looking to develop that into sort of like something that's a bit more consumer friendly, if you like, for things like that potentially. So yeah, I mean it's not something we have a big need for at the moment, but it's certainly potentially something we could do if needed.
Okay. Any other questions from the room, from the people in the audience?
Yes, maybe one more question just now on SAMA again. Just want to know, now that you are moving into commissioning your internal software, how much are you reducing effort internally to maintain SAMA compared to what you had before to PLT?
Well, we're putting more effort into SAMA. I mean, PLT really wasn't being maintained, and this is a problem. It sort of was legacy software, so there was basically, was only really bug fixing happening.
Okay, but yeah. Will it be the same now on SAMA? I mean, is there a significant gain on moving to Mosaic and having SAMA on the side than compared to having PLT in terms of?
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, the key thing is that PLT is an old code base. It's not a web application. There's various things that are problematic with it, but it also doesn't have the functionality we need. So, for example, during this journey I was talking about, we've added 3 automated stores to Mosaic. We've got a kind of liquid nitrogen automated store being added this year. So, and we just get that out of the box from Mosaic. We don't have, whereas if we did it with in-house software, we'd actually have to build, the kind of modules that interact with the stores, etc. So there's all those kind of things, rack handling. We basically have integrate Mosaic with rack scanners. We can handle plates. There's all that stuff that we couldn't do before that we can do now.
So it's more automated.
Yes, but we just have more functionality. People can do more things now.
And Stuart, maybe that's then more a question for Simon and the IMS team, but my assumption is from looking from outside to this current solution is first, all the data are with Mosaic and SAMA is mainly a user interface.
Yes.
And also this means the maintenance effort for a modern application like SAMA is much lower than anything else what PLT might have done with all the legacy code with maybe an older stock test stack?
I'm not. I couldn't say for sure, but I'm probably Simon would say yes. It's easier, but yeah.
With this, Stuart, thank you very much for this presentation, for also answering these partly challenging questions.
No, it was my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you as well from the Basel crowd here. A big
Yes.
applause for you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but maybe in September I'll see you all.
Great.
Bye all.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
For participating.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.